Hello everyone, I hope you can hear me. There's a little bit of a delay, so I have to just make sure that it's actually working. And we'll give it some time so people can join.
That's good.
Okay, let's start it here. Okay, so welcome to the live demo. I'm Christina and I'm one of the founders of Amazing Marvin, and the other founder is actually behind me, my husband Mark, and he will be manning the chat, so you can talk to him in the chat. And we also have Marvin. I don't know if you can see him. Yeah, that's Marvin. He's here too. The whole team. So thank you so much for joining us. I would love to know who you are. If you want to introduce yourself in the comments, if you're already using Marvin right now, or if you're just curious about what Marvin's about. So this is kind of an introduction to Marvin, and I'll go over, the basic concept behind it, why we created it, and how to use it, how to get started with it, and just really the core concepts that are important for you to understand if you really want to get the most out of it. I do this every Wednesday, and after this, I'm usually doing another special topic. You can join for that as well if you want to just stay, or you can watch the recordings. All of these webinars are recorded. And today's special topic will be about smart lists. And so those are where we show kind of advanced features in Marvin and give you ideas of how you could set them up to help you with different things. And last week we were talking about projects, which is probably the second webinar you should watch if you feel like Marvin could work for you. It's on our YouTube channel. You can find it there. It's called Working Well with Projects. So I'm gonna get started. What is Marvin? Well, you probably already know Marvin is a personal productivity tool, but the more important question is, why did we create it when there are already thousands of apps out there? And it's actually started out as something I created for myself. And I was just very overwhelmed with all the things I had to do, and I had a huge procrastination problem, which I sort of realized as I was observing more and thinking more about my productivity. And I could not find an app that just worked in the way that I wanted. And we are going to talk about what is so different about Marvin, because Marvin is quite different than all the other to-do apps out there. And just to give you a little preview, it's basically a combination between a to-do list and a calendar, but not in the way that you would expect. And it has these fun features that allow you to really customize Marvin that are very unique, and they're all designed to help you with really specific problems that you run into when you're trying to get things done. Marvin is actually really new. We're in some ways just getting started. This is a snapshot of our roadmap. So a lot of things that we have planned. Not everything is on there, but it gives you kind of a good overview over big features that we feel like are very important. And this is heavily inspired by the people that are already using Marvin. We have a really great community, and we really listen to what people are telling us, with what is working, what's not working, what they're missing. And that's kind of how we build the roadmap and prioritize things. So if you are using Marvin and there's maybe something that you're already missing or you're curious about if we're going to do it, or you have an idea, we always love to hear from you. So you can write me anytime at contact@amazingmarvin.com. Or if you sign up, you'll be part of our community on Facebook, where you can also write in ideas. So, as I said, Marvin is different than other to-do apps. So if you've already used other to-do apps, it can cause maybe a little bit of confusion at first, because it's sort of a kind of a different concept, but still, obviously has a lot of overlapping parts. But at the end of this webinar, I hope all your question marks will have disappeared, and you can, of course, ask me any questions at the end. The webinar that I've planned is only going to take about half an hour or 25 minutes. So let's get into what makes Marvin special. And to back up a bit, the main idea behind Marvin is to help everybody find a productivity system that really works for them. And what do I mean with productivity system? Basically, there's a specific kind of process we all have of how we get things done. Sometimes it's not intentional, but ideally it is, so that we can really like tweak it and make it work for us. And our main motto is that different things work for different people. We all have very different brains and very different lives, different work environments, different jobs, different things that we have to get done, and different things we like. Some people are very structured and they really like having plans, and other people are more spontaneous or maybe get bored more easily and need more stimulation. And some people struggle with being focused, or procrastination, or they have perfectionism issues, or anxiety, and like all these things ultimately factor into how we best get things done, or whether or not we get things done. So a system really needs to be tailored to us. And this is kind of a process that is actually not that easy, because there's not that many books written on how to find your own system. There's a lot of books that showcase a specific system, and that can be a good starting point. But how do you tweak a system? Because that's ultimately what you need to do if you want to find a really, really great system, especially since our own needs change as well. So one thing might work for us in this phase of life, but not in another phase of life. And so we need to have these tools of how we can tweak things and understand what is not working and what can I do about it. And this is kind of a bigger mission behind the entire Marvin company. And I'm going to make specific webinars that work for anybody, if you're using Marvin or not, that will help you find this system. But Marvin is designed specifically to make this process easier, to help you find a system. So that's kind of the big idea. And how's Marvin doing this? So there's two main ways Marvin is kind of unique and helps you find your system. There's a solid core system that is, like I mentioned before, this combination of a to-do list and a calendar. And this allows for a starting point. You can just use it out of the box. You don't have to customize anything. And it's very, very likely that this already is going to make it much easier for you to feel organized and get things done, because it's highly inspired by research, and has been by now also tested by many people, and many people notice the benefits really quickly by just using this core system. And we're going to talk about this, what this means in just a bit. And the other part is the customizability. This is what you're seeing right here. Marvin has a lot of features, but you turn them on and off individually. So each one of this box is like a feature that you can turn on and off. And many of them you can also customize. And this allows you to build that system and only keep what you really need. And it also gives you lots of ideas of things that you can try. And a lot of these features are also very, very unique and specifically designed to help with a problem. For example, there's this task jar in the middle on the left. And this helps you when you feel overwhelmed or you have analysis paralysis. You just don't know what to do next for the things that you have planned. And then you can just put it in a jar and pick one out at random. So yeah, these are these two things. So let's talk about this core system, this to-do list and calendar approach. And this is not necessarily obvious when you first start using Marvin, because a calendar, we're used to the way a calendar looks when we use Google Calendar or in our planner, where it has the time on the left and, day by day. But I'll show you exactly the calendar and to-do list part when we go into the app. So why is this important that we combine a to-do list and a calendar, and why is this necessary? So ultimately, we all have the same challenge in life. We have, on one hand, all these things we want to do or have to do. And so those are our tasks and projects. And we have the specific time we can do them in. We all have the 24 hours in a day, the 7 days a week. And the challenge is to map the tasks to our time, to make sure that we meet deadlines, to make sure we have the right balance and we can move forward. And this is, quite complex because, as you probably know, it's not easy to balance all those things that we have to do. And there's so many things nowadays and our time is limited. And then we also just need the right tools, because to do this in your head is not really possible. So we need some kind of process of how to do it, so that we don't want to spend all of our time just mapping the tasks. We need to actually have the time to actually do the tasks. And then we also need the tools to actually do it, so the apps. And so this is usually kind of this main challenge that we all have. And to-do lists help you by mapping out all the things that you have to do. So on the right, that gives you a representation of the things you have to do. And this is really important because we cannot store them in our brain. And also, if we try to store it in our brain, it just feels overwhelming because we cannot hold that many things at once. But having something written down allows you to kind of manipulate it and see it in different ways. So it's just this visualization that really helps. And that's what a to-do list helps us with. But most to-do lists, they don't help us with this other part where we also see the time we have available and where we can map it. This is usually what we use a calendar for, where we can see where we have time. But most people just use it for calendar items like appointments, so things that are tied to specific times. So some people solve this by just scheduling tasks into their calendar, which can work for some, but it does actually also come with a lot of issues for many people. And I actually talked about that a bit more in the first webinar. So if you're interested, you can check that out later. But yeah, basically we need something that's a bit more flexible, because scheduling, making a specific plan on when to do what, does not work for many people for different reasons. And even though to-do lists have all these limitations, most apps are still just to-do lists or just calendars. But a lot of people, a lot of productivity experts, and a lot of people who just sort of deal a lot with productivity have come to this conclusion that to-do lists, don't work. And what they really mean is that by themselves, they do not work, because they do lack this time component. So there's tons of articles if you want to do a Google search and read more about this. And the answer is always schedule your to-dos, and calendars are more effective. Again, I don't think it's black and white. That's also my experience working with different people. You do need both, and you need to make them work for you, but you definitely need to have something to represent your tasks and some kind of time component. And so this is basically where Marvin comes in, and I'm going to show you now exactly what I mean. So let's switch over to the app. And I'm going to start out by showing you the to-do list part. And if you have used another to-do list app like Todoist or Wunderlist or anything else, this will be familiar to you. But in Marvin, we call this the master list. So this is basically the same component that you'd get in other apps. And if you open the master list, I already set it up. And this is where you want to store all those things you have to do, your projects and your tasks. And this is usually the first thing you do. You kind of get a setup going. And just to sort of make you understand the core concept, when your main view, so the first thing that you see, is actually the calendar part. But it doesn't look like a calendar because you're only seeing one day at a time. So on the left, you can see we're currently on Wednesday the 20th. So this is kind of like a daily to-do list, or just one calendar snapshot of one day. Because the reason behind this is that you can only do one thing at a time. And if you try to look too much into the future when you are actually getting work done, it can feel very overwhelming. There's absolutely no reason to think about what you have to do next week or next month when you're trying to get work done. It's just a nice unit of time, like a day. So you can focus on one day at a time. And, the planning phase is where you kind of map out what to do in your day and what you're doing in your month. And this is something we talk about a lot in other webinars. But basically, you should focus on one day at a time. And here, with these next and previous buttons, you can go to all the other days. So each day, it's just like a calendar, it has its own view. And you can also use the keyboard arrows on the left and right, or if you go command down arrow, you just always go back to today, the most important day. Or you can click here and it will take you the sun, my day item, and it will take you also back to today. So now, the core idea is that you have your master list where you just list all the things you have to do. But then you think about day by day what you want to get done, and you plan a day, ideally the night before, by assigning things like tasks into your day. There's many ways to do that, and we're going to go over it. But you can also, of course, if you just have things come up that you know you want to do, or you haven't set up your master list, you can type it in here. So I have to take out the trash. I have to call my mom. You can add tasks right here with this bar into your day. So basically, these days now, we call them, they're scheduled. They don't have a specific time necessarily, but they are assigned to a day because the intention is to do this on Wednesday. So this is what we call they're scheduled, and they have this due date, this DO date, the date we want to do them on. And this is separate than a due date, what you might know from all the other apps, which we also have, but it's strictly for deadlines. So really, if you know you have to do something by a certain date, or there will be some consequence. But if you get set up in Marvin, the first thing you do is just get all the stuff in. So that's what I'm going to show you, and we'll come back to this planning of your day. If you first sign up, you'll just see this inbox, which is the default category. And you can brain dump here and just think about sort of all the things you have to do first. But the key is that the master list has a specific organization. This just makes it easier for us to manage all our to-dos. And to organize the things you have to do, you basically have these 3 items. You have to sort of understand what they are. There's categories, projects, and tasks. Now, tasks are really simple. Those are just these units that you can check off. And because we also have projects, which are basically collections of tasks, we have the best practice that a task should be something that is a single action, something that you can sit down and do and then check off. So I can call my mom, and check it off. It's kind of like something usually that's smaller than an hour, like it takes me less than an hour, between 5 minutes and an hour. That's a good task. And they always should start with a verb and be pretty specific, so I really know what to do. For larger things, so let's say I want to design a website, we would create projects. And projects in Marvin have these flags. And there's a whole webinar I did on projects last week, and definitely recommend that you check that out. So yeah, projects are just collections of tasks so that you can kind of group them together and manipulate, the bigger thing, but also then drill down and actually see your tasks. And tasks and projects, you want to organize in categories. And categories are these things that have a folder icon. And it is literally like a folder. You would just sort of group things together, and you can't check them off. The goal isn't to complete them. It's just ways to give structure to your items. And here, you can always, switch it out. You don't have to feel like, oh my God, how am I going to set this up? I have to get it perfect right away. It's very flexible. You can always delete them and, move the things or rename them. You can give them colors here, which is really helpful because this color will be represented throughout Marvin. So you always kind of know, oh, this is a task that's household, this is a work task. And I do have best practices on our website that you can read about on if you're wondering how to set this up and how you should categorize it, if you should just have a person category or kind of more detailed like I have here. So here I have my main project, Marvin. This is actually not my real to-do list, by the way. But then we have this other category with health, household things like taxes and cleaning and everything that kind of, is maintenance that we have to just do as adults, lots of non-fun stuff. And then maybe you have a hobby, or maybe you're in school, so you can set it up like this, and then you make subcategories. If it's a really, really large category, that can be helpful. But this is usually one of the first things you do. And by the way, if you ever need help getting set up or you have questions, you can always write me and I can make a quick video and looking at your specific situation. That is sort of part of the service that we offer because we really want to help everybody have a good workflow. So yeah, and most of these tasks in the master list are not scheduled. They're just there, but you haven't assigned them to a day. And you don't have to, plan out all your tasks. That's not the point. It's really that you take it day by day. And you can always see when a task is scheduled because it's sort of grayed out like this reframing ideas here. So it's still there, but it's already scheduled. So it's already kind of a step further from for getting completed. When you hover over it, any item, you always see these buttons on the right, and this is how you can do things with the task. or the projects. They also have buttons. And you can see right now that the calendar icon here is highlighted, which is again means it's scheduled. And you hover over it and you can actually see when it's scheduled for. So this is scheduled for tomorrow. And yeah, here we just have notes, but those are all kind of separate features. And by the way, just really quickly, because most people really like this, and it's kind of easy to miss. So if you have a project, meaning kind of a bigger task, if you will, but we call them projects in Marvin, like redesigning a landing page or cleaning out your basement, you can always click on this flag. That's why you see this little wobbly, and you kind of zoom in on it, and then you get this project view where you can see the note in a bigger way, because you can have notes attached to projects, and you can kind of map things out here. And the master list is very nestable, so you can have sub-projects, and you can just rearrange things and do a lot of things to really feel organized. And we're also actually redesigning this, so you will keep this view, but there will be additional views. So if you say, I don't like this column, it feels weird, I would rather just have it in all one list, or showing icons or something like that, we got you covered very soon. So yeah, this is kind of the basic idea, that you schedule these tasks. And the basic workflow that we do recommend is that you think about what you want to get done the next day, and kind of make this plan. And there's also best practices that will kind of give you some tips on how to plan a good day in our knowledge base, and I can link to that below. And the way that you plan your day, there's different ways, but probably the easiest way is if you click the sun on the top right. And then a little master list, the same way that you had it before, comes up here on the left, where you can just open all these things and see. You can always see in this number how many things are unscheduled in there. And up here we have some special smart lists. This is actually the next webinar we're going to do. That's coming up in about half an hour. So if this sounds interesting, feel free to just stay on. But yeah, you can just drag things in here that you want to do. So you actually can't see my cursor. So this is maybe why it looked a bit funny. But yeah, you can also just anywhere where you see a task from here, you can click this and then just schedule from here. This is another way. And let's get into shortcuts. So just shortcuts are very helpful, and you will probably be happy if you know how to use them, because they just kind of make things a lot easier. And if you go on this top right menu on Help and Resources, and then Shortcuts here, you will get this shortcut sidebar where you can kind of see the shortcuts we have. But the most important ones, because there's a lot, are the global ones, meaning you can use them anywhere. So spacebar, for example, opens up this quick add bar where I can just send things to the master list, because you're working here in your day view during the day, but then maybe you think of something you want to do and save in the master list, and then you can just click spacebar and add it. And then the other related important shortcuts are task inputs. So let's say I have this task I have to remember. I have to, call my phone provider because there's something really urgent. Now I want to file this already in the correct spot because this is household. So then to assign it to a category and project from here, I do pound. So I can assign it to household, and maybe it's really, really urgent. So I give it a due date and say, actually, this is due tomorrow. And then it goes into the master list. And speaking of due dates, as I mentioned, this is something that we also have, and we should use it for deadlines. And if, let's say, I have to call my mom today because it's her birthday, this obviously has a deadline. Can't do that tomorrow. So then I can click on this edit menu here, this cog, and choose a due date, and I'm going to assign it to today. So then it will show me this is due today in red. But if something has a due date that's a little bit farther out, oh, I just actually made a mistake and I scheduled it. Let's try this again. So if I want to have a due date that's farther out in 8 days, it will just show in gray. So you do know which tasks have a strict deadline and which ones do not. And it's separate from these days where you just schedule, your tasks into. Another really kind of basic thing that I want to mention that's important and that's kind of part of the setup process is recurring tasks. And recurring tasks you can set up here on the top right, but you can also do this directly from the master list. So when you're kind of brain dumping and just putting everything you have to do into Marvin, and let's say in the household, I want to set up a cleaning plan and just things I do regularly. For example, watering plants is something that just every 7 days I have to do it, or wash the sheets every 10 days I want to do it. You can set up a task that just shows up on the correct day every time, which is really helpful. So let's say I want to remember to clean the fridge. Right now it's just a regular task, but then I can turn it into a recurring task with the edit icon. Click on make task recurring, and then set up different patterns. We have a lot of patterns, but if you're missing something, just let us know. We can usually add it really quickly. And yeah, then you just say, okay, this I want to do monthly, and I'm going to do it on, the 25th every month. And then you have a recurring task, and every day it's just going to show up. So if we go to the 25th, it will be there, clean fridge. And so yeah, there's really helpful things you can do with that. And now we're going to talk about the last basic part that is really central, and those are the strategies. This is what we talked about in the beginning of the way you can customize Marvin. And by the way, if you missed where I clicked, it's at the very bottom in the middle. Now, when people see this, some get really excited. They think, wow, this is awesome. There's so many fun features, so many helpful things. But it can also feel overwhelming, because you might be thinking, where do I start? How can I ever build my workflow with this? But do not get discouraged. Just take it step by step. It takes time, and it's kind of a fun process. They're very easy to use. You can just turn them on and off. You don't have to think too much about it, and you can kind of play around with it. And a very good sort of process to find a workflow is to just become very aware of what's working and what's not. And this basic workflow I talked about before, where you just try to think about what you want to get done the next day, and you set up these tasks, that's just a good starting point, because it helps you become aware of where the problems lie. For example, if you struggle with figuring out what to plan because you feel like, well, how do I know what I should be doing tomorrow? I have so many things, and how do I pick? And that's a good hint that that's kind of a pain point that you have, and where you have to find solutions to. And again, you can write me, and I'm going to create more resources that allow you to sort of, identify problem and then look at different solutions. But it's also helpful to be part of the community, where you can always write in what your problems are, and other people are happy to help. And sometimes you can just click on these tags here, like they say, I often feel overwhelmed, and you can see, okay, what kind of things do we have to help with overwhelm? When you want to read more about a strategy, you just click on it, and you can kind of read how it works. And I'm going to add videos in here as well. And then you can, turn it on and off and go try it out. And definitely don't turn on all of them at once, or you're just going to feel overwhelmed, not knowing, what to try. Just kind of do things as you see the need, the need arises, or make it a kind of a thing where you say, I'm going to explore a new thing every day or every week. And yeah, just definitely have fun with it. Start with the basics. And if you already have a system from maybe another app, or a system that works pretty well, usually a lot of the features you would need for these are in the basic tags, like priority stars and labels or tags. So yeah, definitely try not to get overwhelmed, and have fun with it, and always reach out for help. We're always happy to help. So I think we covered the basics, and I hope that it made sense. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. If there's something you want me to clarify, or if you already have a specific problem you do know you have, and you want me to kind of maybe show you a workflow right now. But yeah, definitely check out the previous webinars, where especially the working with projects, which has a lot of workflows already, like examples of if you have a lot of projects in your life, and most people do, because most things we want to accomplish are usually take several days or several weeks, and it's not just a single task. It's kind of a bigger thing we're working towards. And I have a lot of strategies in that webinar on how to manage that and how to organize your day and make sure you make progress on these projects. So definitely check that out. And if you want to stay in half an hour, we're going to start the other webinar. You can find it on our website. If you go to amazingmarvin.com and then on the top right, live webinars, it will have a link to the Smart List webinar, which is these things here that I have set up already. I'm going to just, because there's a delay, I'm going to just wait a bit to see if there's any questions. Let's see if I covered everything. So I covered the scheduling, how this is like a calendar, the master list, the difference between a category and projects and tasks, and how you can get them in your day, recurring tasks, the shortcuts. Oh, so yeah, because I've mentioned the knowledge base a couple of times, if you go to help and resources at the top right, there's actually this shortcut here, so you can just click on the knowledge base here and it will open a knowledge base. It is in some places not super up to date, not that it would mess anything up, but because we're changing Marvin every week there's basically new strategies, so you don't have to always rearrange everything and feel like you won't understand how it works anymore, but we're just adding strategies and sometimes changing some things, and so it's not always up to date, but definitely helpful. And I'm working on a new resource as well. So yeah, if you like this webinar and you thought it was helpful, give it a thumbs up. Would really appreciate it. And again, if you ever have any questions, you can email me at contact@amazingmarvin.com. And if you want to join us on this journey, we would love to have you part of our family. And you will get a link to the Facebook community. And it's really, the people are awesome there and very helpful and so many great ideas. And, everybody's just helping to make Marvin better and better. And we have so many awesome things planned. Gamification and accountability strategies. And not just to make your workflow easier, in the ways you organize it, but also to help you be motivated to get things done and just make it kind of more fun. And the accountability obviously helps with adding a little bit of pressure, but healthy pressure, because you will always be, that's the nice thing about Marvin, in control of which features you want to use and which ones you don't want to use. Because yeah, that's the kind of our main motto. Different things work for different people. So it looks like there aren't any questions right now. So I will turn off the live stream. And yeah, maybe I'll see you in the next webinar that starts in 25 minutes. Bye.